everyone, I'm Mike and this is the Sunday Art Show. Now, as you can probably hear from the wind blowing in the microphone, today we're outside and as you can now see we're up high above the city of Exeter. So this is actually Duriard Valley Park and it provides a wonderful view across the Exe Valley to the rolling hedge-lined fields beyond. But because of the level of wind today and the fairly cool temperatures, I thought I would try painting from inside my car. So as you can see, looking out through the windscreen, we've still got a wonderful view, but somewhat protected from the elements now. And once again, I'm using some mixed media paper, A4 in size. And if you saw last week's video, you'll know that I was working on painting horses from life. And to do that, I used my newly acquired, fresh Christmas present, Inktense travel set, which you can see on the passenger seat of the car there. And that comes with a little water brush, where the water is contained within the handle. And you may remember last week I had a little bit of trouble using this water brush to get quite the effect I wanted with horses, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go for landscapes. So as you can just see, I've just blocked in some blue, and this little kit includes, I think, 3 different blues. One in particular, I can't remember the colours, I'll check it out for you for later in the video, but one of the colours in particular is a very vibrant blue. It's really quite a beautiful colour, and that's what I used for the sky there. And it's probably a little difficult to see now, but the clouds are kind of sweeping across the sky fairly quickly in these windy conditions. And as you can see, I'm using some paper towel to just soften some of the edges of those patches of colour I've put down. So the sky today has bright blue at the top, and then there are kind of grey purpley clouds, some silver in the sky as well. And those are the clouds which are sweeping across the sky in the high winds. So having done that, what I'm beginning to do now is pop in some of the horizon line, the distant purpley grey hills. And, you know, I'm finding this little setup in the cars works remarkably well. Obviously, you've got to be careful, you know, on the media you use. You certainly don't want to use acrylic paint, because if that gets onto your upholstery, you're never ever going to get that out. So that's why I've gone with this sort of water-soluble media here. And complete disclaimer, I have no idea whether Inktense will wash out of fabric or not, but I was fairly confident that I could keep things contained here. So because I'm just using the water brush, there's no water to spill, and I've got a kind of a canvas plasticky bag between the paints and the seat to protect the seat covering there. But what I'm doing here is using the round tip of the water brush, and I'm kind of dragging it sideways across the paper and experimenting with the different marks I can get with this brush. Because although I was moaning a bit last week about not having a flat brush, you know, it's a bit of an excuse really. What I should have done is adapted more and kind of, you know, tried to use the round brush in as many different ways as possible. So that's what I'm experimenting with here. And I'm keeping the distant colours kind of muted, desaturated, to help push that part of the landscape off into the distance. And what I'll do as I come closer and closer into the foreground is I'll gradually make the colours bolder, brighter, and make the contrasts between light and shadow stronger as well. And my hope is that will create a sense of depth. Now I'm using the paper in the portrait orientation, and this is something I've mentioned in a couple of different videos. That's something I like to do quite often for landscapes or even for animal paintings involving landscapes, because it really helps me just focus on the part of the view that I'm working on. And, you know, much like my animals, if I work from a photograph with an animal, which is what I commonly do, I'm not looking to replicate the photo exactly. And even though I'm working from life here and I've got this wonderful view, I'm not looking to replicate that very complex, distant landscape exactly. I'm just trying to capture, you know, the essence and the feel of the view. So hopefully it'll be recognisable as this view, but if you look at my finished painting, it certainly won't be a detailed map of every single hedge and tree that's out there. And I may even, you know, go a little bit off reference, if you like, and add my own little trees or move things around. You know, and that's a common artistic practice, isn't it? So just, you know, have some fun and be outside, or as close as we can be today, and see what we can do in sort of 20 minutes or so in terms of capturing this rather complex view. Now I've just checked the little colour chart that comes with the Inktense travel set, and the blue that I was referring to is actually just called bright blue. That's the blue I used for the sky, in case you were wondering. But what I'll actually do, now I think about it, is I will list in the description of this video the 12 colours that they provide with this Inktense travel set, just so you get an idea of, of the range of colours that they provide. The other thing I wanted to mention was the the water brushes, the brushes that hold the water within the handle of the brush. So after last week's video where I was talking about the water brushes while I was painting the horses, an artist called Cindy Schnakel, or Cindy Schnakel, I'm sorry Cindy, I'm not sure how to pronounce your surname, so please feel free to let me know in a comment below this video. But anyway, she was kind enough to contact me and say, oh, if you're interested in water brushes, here's a blog post that I wrote some time ago, and it's a really great article. She goes into a lot of detail. She tries out the different brands of water brushes. So what I'll do is I'll include a link to that blog post in the description to this video. So if you want to find out more about water brushes, then you can do so. Also, please check out Cindy's art. I'll put some up on screen actually now. She does what she describes as humorous surrealism, and she's got some absolutely fantastic artwork there, a whole range of subjects, many animals, and a really unique and wonderful, vibrant style. So please go and check out her website as well. But in the meantime, if we just go back to the painting I'm working on, what I'm doing here is just adding in a few lines to indicate some hedges. And in much the same way as I paint animals, if you remember from other videos, I often talk about, if you use the brush strokes to follow the contours of the animal, that will help you create an illusion of 3 dimensions. And if you're looking at a field covered with looking at a hill covered with fields which are lined with hedges, then by choosing the lines of your hedges to be curves, then you can use those as contours. Well, I mean, they are contours of the surface of the hill. So again, if you're selective and careful about how you create those lines, you can help to create a 3-dimensional illusion. So let's have just a quick summary of what I've done so far with the painting. I blocked in the sky very loosely with some blue and grey and a bit of paper towel to soften the edges. Then, keeping the colours muted, I did the most distant ranges of hills. And you can see that while I've been talking away, I've also included some warmer, more yellowy greens for the foreground. Now what I'm doing at the moment is blocking in some of the little woodland areas and some of the trees, keeping things very, very loose and making use of the shape of the brush I've got to kind of automatically create that textured feel of woodland. So you can't quite see it out through the windscreen, but hidden behind those sort of wispy trees, there is a little block of woodland there. It's kind of a triangular shape. And I've just described that as a mass at the moment towards, up high near the horizon line with a more shadowy region. And what I'm doing now is tackling some of the more foreground trees, and I'm adding a little bit more detail to those. Again, that's going to help bring those trees forward compared to the more distant trees. So it's really a question of keeping a balance between very loose gestural marks and just a little bit of descriptive detail to help give the gestural marks a bit more context. But there are some lovely autumnal colours out on this landscape. We've obviously got the greens and the purples of the distant hills, but the tree line, which is just beyond the field, right next to me, that's got a lovely warm coppery tone to it. And then we've got some darker browns and greens in the foreground trees. So, it's a really good way to explore the colour palette I've got available. So I appear to be contemplating my work there because there were a few seconds of inaction. But this little kit, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I would say what I'm learning from using it most of all is I feel I need to think ahead quite carefully because you've got limited space. I feel I need to kind of plan a little bit and sort of think, okay, I'm going to do these colours first, this section of the painting first, and and work in quite a little bit more of a methodical way than I perhaps normally do. when I'm working at home with a larger palette and my acrylics, I definitely have a plan in mind, but I'm able to sort of flip back and forth to different regions and different colours just because there's more space and I've generally speaking got more time. But I'm definitely enjoying learning how to optimise these ink tints, for the outdoors. So you can see I'm starting to introduce some warmer colours there. There's a little bit of reddy brown, reddy orange gone into the foreground. And in certain areas I'm keeping the paint quite concentrated, so I get kind of firm, hard edges to the little patches of colour I put down. And then with a simple squeeze of the handle of the brush, I can of course instantly dilute the paint, and then I can get a lovely wash or run one colour into another, or simply have an area with softer edges. So that's the great advantage I'm finding with this water brush, is that you can, whereas with a normal brush you'd put down your paint and then maybe it would run out on the bristles, so you could do a bit of dry brush. But if you want to do much more than that, you're probably going to have to go back to your palette and refresh the brush. Well, you can do the dry brush and the concentrated mark with the water brush, but as I just said, a quick squeeze and you're straight into wash or soft edge mode. So you've got a couple of extra options there, which are available to you in less than a second. So just mixing up some more colours now, adding a little bit of that bright blue that I mentioned earlier. So the little mixing palette, it comes in 5 compartments. You've got 2 large compartments and then 3 smaller compartments, or wells if you prefer. And it's surprisingly good. They've matched the size of the wells quite well to the size of the brush. I would say though, from the little bit of experimentation I've done so far, I'm probably going to stick to A4 paper or smaller. I think I would struggle to cover anything much bigger with these materials. I think I would start to get frustrated, but I may change my mind on that, as I get more experience. We'll see what happens. Well, one of the things Cindy was saying actually about the water brushes is that there aren't many, but there are a few flat brush water brushes available. So I'm definitely excited to get some of those in the near future and give those a try, because I'll still use the round brush as well, but that's going to really open up the type of marks I can make while I'm working outside. So I'm just adding more and more texture and different types of mark and variation in colour to this foreground foliage. And again, I'm keeping things very, very loose here. I'm not trying to describe in too much detail what's going on. But just it's a pattern of colour really, and different types of mark that I'm putting down. But hopefully, you agree that it's looking like a reasonable representation of a Devon countryside landscape. So for the foreground field, which is immediately in front of me, you can see that I'm putting that in with rather different marks to what I've done before. And for the most part, those marks were just sweeping from left to right. Now I decided to lift off some of that green on the right-hand side for reasons I can't remember at the moment, but no doubt it will be revealed in just a second. Oh, I'm just changing the tone a little bit. Yes, so you can see there's a brighter area of the field there, and I'm not depicting that exactly, but I just decided to add a bit of variation between. I decided the block of just a single colour of green going across wasn't giving me the effect I wanted, so just added in a little burst of yellow on the right hand side. And now we're introducing some more of these coppery tones, these lovely oranges that you can get with the ink tints into the foreground. So orange is obviously a lovely warm colour, so a nice way to bring things forward. So continuing to work on the foreground, just picking up some darker colours there. So that was let me just check the colour guide I've got in front of me. That was a teal green I just picked up then, and you can see I'm just sorry, it's gone off camera a little bit there. It's a little bit difficult to judge still with the little head cam I'm wearing exactly when the entire painting is completely in frame. So on the whole, I've been doing quite well for this video, but I obviously needed to hold the paper up a little bit higher there in an ideal world. But you can see I'm just putting in some more textured marks there, and now this little bank of trees and foliage I'm putting in, obviously it's not there, you know, I've just decided to do that. But it's pretty much inspired by the big trees you can see on the right next to me. And looking back, you know, I'm not 100% sure this was the best move. I quite like the foreground trees I put in the moment, but I think I should have perhaps left the foreground a little bit more open, or perhaps just an opening within that teal coloured bank that I put in. You know, just layering wash upon wash like this and building up layers of shadow, it's a really enjoyable way to work. It's quite quick and efficient, and you know, just putting down a thin layer of paint, it dries quite quickly as well. So the Inktense is obviously waterproof once it's dry, so it's very easy to work in a very layered way. So I'm just making this up at the moment. I'm kind of taking a little bit of inspiration from the nearby trees now, but I'm more or less just letting my hand wander across the page and enjoying the sensation of not quite knowing where I'm going, to create some gnarled, twisted branches and suggest a bit of a range of some winter trees in the foreground. And again, you know, you can even use the water brush dilution trick, you know, for this type of stuff as well. You know, if, just to get some wispier twigs on the end of the branches, you can have some softer edges there, or a loose bit of foliage, that kind of thing. So, you know, so far it seems to be working really well for me for all aspects of landscapes. I think actually one of the things it would work really well for, the water brush, is painting rivers and streams and things, to just get very soft variations in the light catching the water. So that's something that I'll have to get around to trying at some point. So yeah, so I was about to say perhaps I'll head down to the weir as featured, you know, with all the rushing water, you know, that I featured in a video a few weeks ago. And I think that might work quite well, because although obviously once the water's tumbled down the weir, the water's churning everywhere. I'll pop that up on screen just so you can see if you didn't catch the video. But above the weir, there's lovely sort of glass smooth water. So, you know, it might be worth giving that a go with the water brush as well at some point. So yeah, so here we go. So the video's, you know, not the video, the painting is coming reasonably close to completion now. Just adding in some more trees. And one of the things I like to do with my brush, especially if I'm painting trees and things, is, you know, if I'm painting a branch, I won't always keep that branch depicted as a continuous line. I'll deliberately let the brush skip off the paper. And that's true even if I'm painting animals in terms of their outline, or if I'm painting a person, because sometimes you get lovely effects where the line peters out and then when it comes back in again. And to my mind, it makes for a more interesting line than if you just do a perfectly crafted line along the entire length of the branch. So yeah, so that's another little trick that I employ from time to time. But working in the car here, I found surprisingly easy, actually. I thought I might struggle, you know, with the cramped conditions. And but, you know, as you can see, I've just got my pad of paper propped up on the dash, and it makes for quite a stable easel. And there we go. That's pretty much the finished painting. So let me give you a better look. What I'm going to do is I'll just take a step outside the car, and so you can see it in the better daylight, because obviously it was a little bit dark in the car for viewing paintings. And I've just got my phone there. You can just see at the bottom of the screen. So just giving you another look at the landscape through the phone camera, and there is the finished painting. So as usual, what I'll do is I'll put a link to the finished painting in the description below this video, so that you can check out the high resolution image if you want to. But in the meantime, please remember to like the video, and if you're new here, please remember to subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you next Sunday for the next episode of the Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.